Our episode today is going to be about the crime wave in Washington, D.C.
The president and the government should be about law and order.
If you have fewer people to do the job, you're going to miss stuff.
When you actually help law enforcement do their jobs, crime stops happening. Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian podcast with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
Our episode today is going to be about the crime wave, or I guess now the law wave in Washington, D.C. Before we get started, go check out patriotpostshop.com, where you can buy shirts like this one, so you too can be an American patriot. We'll throw it up on the screen so you don't have to look past my laptop. Buy stuff there, shirts, t-shirts, stickers, books, whatever you're interested in, go do that. Or go to patriotpost.us and subscribe to our free daily newsletter. That's the best way you can support us. Leave us a comment. Let us know what videos you'd like us to make, or tell us how stupid we are for the things we are making videos about. That's what we usually get.
Clean shot starched by Vernon Casey.
That's usually what Sterling gets.
Right, it's just me. Everyone loves them.
Andrew and I know.
Yeah.
Yes, send us more hate comments.
Right,
dislike our videos. Don't subscribe.
As long as you're interacting, we're happy.
What my associate is trying to say is that our new brake pads are really cool.
All right. So there's been this crime wave, and then now, very recently, the past week or two, crackdown of law and order in Washington, D.C.
Would you even call it a crime wave or just a sustained crime problem?
Crime tsunami, maybe? Like
well,
where it just
over the
kept
course
rising?
of like 9-10 years, something like
I
that.
know. It's not really a wave. It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Depends
just
on what
incoming
timeline.
tide of crime.
Yeah.
Basically, crime in D.C. has been really bad
For a
in
while.
the last 10 years, particularly bad in 2021 and
2023 as well.
till like a couple weeks ago.
Right. Until I think it was last Monday when we're recording this. It's last Monday when the episode comes out too, that Trump cracked down and seems to be working. It's pretty impressive. But let's lay some groundwork here.
All right, go for it.
So crime was at like a historic low in 2012 in DC, and then over the next decade it rose, and then especially after COVID lockdowns, or during the COVID lockdowns, that's when it really spiked in 2021. Then it hit like historic highs for violent crime in 2023, and then the numbers have been coming down since then. And I'm doing scare quotes because it's dubiously true that the numbers have been coming down.
Yeah, particularly because of that police commissioner. Or was it it was a commander.
Commander cooking the books.
It's cooking the books, man.
A D.C. police commander is under investigation for allegedly making changes to crime statistics in his district. Tonight, the police department confirms Michael Pulliam was placed on paid administrative leave in mid-May.
Getting officers to write up lesser crimes or recategorize, like, oh, don't write them up for that, write them up for this.
Right. So it'd be, just finding a minor traffic offense you can book somebody for instead of the much more serious offense that they were pulled over for.
Yeah.
I think it's an important point to put down here too. We said COVID, but what was also happening in 2020?
I think there was some really mostly peaceful protests going on.
Yeah.
No, Sterling, it was the summer of love.
Right. Yeah. It was, I remember lots of fires, but it was mostly peaceful.
Yes, they were campfires.
Right, yes.
In the
Campfires
streets.
of vehicles.
Where people were singing Kumbaya and roasting marshmallows.
Right. It was super peaceful. That's
Yeah.
all you need to know.
In dumpsters.
Right.
Yes, and the bricks they threw.
Were bricks of love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, of course, that's all BS. Crime went through the roof. The Summer of Love was one of the most violent events in recent American history. And then very, very recently, you've seen things like congressional staffers get, I think one got killed in the Navy Yard in D.C., and then others have been carjacked and stuff. But then the most recent event was the Doge staffer.
Somebody from Doge was very badly hurt last night. You saw that.
Or the former Doge staffer
What's
known
his name?
as Big Balls.
Edward Korstein, a.k.a. Big Balls, a name he chose as a joke for his LinkedIn account, was left a bloody mess after cops say he fought off a gang of teens attempting to steal his girlfriend's car.
Well, he demonstrated his plethora of courage by stepping in to help prevent a carjacking, which he did. But he got thoroughly beaten up by a gang of hoodlums. Obviously, Trump heard about that, and he tweeted out, "Crime in Washington, D.C. is totally out of control. Local youths and gang members, some only 14, 15, 16 years old, are randomly attacking, mugging, and maiming, shooting innocent citizens, at the same time knowing they'll be almost immediately released." And he goes on to say that if this doesn't stop, he's going to federalize D.C. It didn't stop, and he did federalize D.C. And wow, it turns out when you actually help law enforcement do their jobs, crime stops happening.
That's ironic.
The president and the government should be about law and order.
Well, let's put a little more context on this. So we go back to 2020 and the result of BLM. And one of the main issues that BLM was calling for was defund the police.
Right.
So what Washington, D.C.'s council decided to do, they didn't quite defund the police, but what they did was freeze new police hirings. What resulted in that was 50-year low in the size of the D.C. police force.
Good grief.
I mean, just trying to do the job, obviously, if you have fewer people to do the job, you're going to miss stuff.
It makes perfect sense.
Just on that, you can't respond to every single call at that point if you don't have enough people, officers, to respond.
Yeah. Imagine that when you have less law enforcement, you have less enforcement of the law. I don't know how you're supposed to put these things together.
But I thought all cops were bad, Thomas.
Oh, yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the case.
Yeah.
So on that, though, Thomas, the other thing that happened is D.C. tried in 2023 to pass a law that would have actually lowered crime punishment for things like homicide, carjacking, and felonies committed with a gun. They passed it, actually. The D.C. government did. And then Congress stepped in because Congress, if you don't know, D.C. is its own thing. It's not a state. It's not just a city. It's its own complicated thing. And Congress has a say in the government of D.C. In fact, it has the ultimate say, and it has allowed D.C. mayors and stuff to have more influence in the past few years. But when they try to say we're going to lower penalties for murder, Congress was like, no, you're not.
No.
Yeah, and credit even the Biden administration at this point was like, no, that's too far.
Yeah.
You're not doing this. And I think maybe this is a point to get into what D.C. is, because there's a big narrative talking point going around right now that is just entirely erroneous. And that talking point is this is Trump's first stepping stone to basically do this type of action in cities all across America.
And the I guess idea there is that he will seize military control of the
Right.
nation.
He's going to send out the military, and they're going to be walking through streets everywhere in America.
So his actions here are covered by provision in the Constitution.
Yeah, they are.
And if you wanted to read that off, you can say which one it is, Thomas.
Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. This is where the Constitution talks about specifically federal properties, in which the District of Columbia is. It's federal property, federal land. It was designated for the place of the government. Basically, you could almost say our national headquarters, right? And so as the federal government is residing in this district that's cut out, that's not a part of any state, intentionally so, it is regulating that district itself. That's part of Congress's job. The notion that, and over the years, what's happened is because the population within the district has grown to, I think it's roughly 700,000. Maybe
it's it's a little bit under 1 million. So
yeah, somewhere around that number. In 1973, Congress passed the, let's see what it's called,
Home Rule.
Yeah, DC Home Rule Act, which grants a kind of it allowed the DC residents to elect their own mayor and to elect a council. And so then it gives it more like a normal city has a mayor and a council, etc. And so it gives it more like another city power to do so. But even in that, there's a provision that says, in case the president declares an emergency, he can take over the police force in the city.
Yeah, I mean, all that to say is there is robust legal precedent
Yes.
for this. It's kind of undeniable.
Right.
You know, it's not even a gray area.
No.
And this whole narrative, this notion of he's going to try it first in D.C. and then move it out to the rest of the country. I mean, what's the evidence of that? Trump does push the rules as hard as he possibly can.
Sure.
And so maybe that's the concern, but I mean, he's literally playing within the rules as like perfectly as possible.
Well, even in L.A., when he sent in the National Guard in L.A., it was specifically for federal courthouses and federal buildings, guarding them. It wasn't just walking the streets of L.A.
Right.
Maybe to steelman the position of these Democrats, I think there is an element where what Trump is trying to do is prove a model case and say, see, DC had this horrible crime. We stepped in. We actually enforced the law. We arrested criminals. We literally bulldozed homeless camps after making sure the homeless weren't there and are either, you know, giving them voluntary options or putting them in mental homes if they need it. If he goes through with this and if it keeps up all month and then whatever he does after the month is up, because he only federalized the DC police for 30 days.
According to the provision that allows it for 30 days.
Right. So after the month is up, if crime continues to be down and if the gangs continue not to be a problem, if graffiti does not pop back up on all the things they're cleaning it off of, then you would have a compelling case to the other major cities in America. Hey, you don't have to live that way. Mm-hmm. You can actually enforce the law. But what Trump can't do is what he's done in D.C., which is federalize the police and send in the National Guard just on a whim. He can do that in D.C. He can't do it in Baltimore. I think a lot of Baltimoreans wish he could, but he can't.
Yep.
You mean what he's showing is that the role of government is to enforce law and order? Is that what you're
It's an incredible idea.
Wow.
I can barely get my mind around it.
So
It's
they're
novel.
worried about themselves being shamed, like in Chicago, or L.A., or New York, or Baltimore.
Or let's be fair, Memphis.
Sure.
We hate to say it, but it's true.
And Memphis is one of the worst for crime in the nation.
Right. American cities are not safe.
Yeah.
You know, I can't think of one.
Red and blue.
Yeah, red and, well, if it's a city, it's blue. That's just the facts.
Well,
even smaller cities are purple. You know, you don't really get a sizable city that is red. It doesn't really happen.
I think maybe the closest currently might be Miami.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I know it's a Republican governor.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry,
fair
a
assessment,
Republican
Sterling.
mayor. Yeah, but it is fair. I wonder what would be interesting is comparing this era we're in now to the 1970s as a crime that was just really pervasive in places like New York. I mean, New York got turned around thanks in large part to Mayor Giuliani when he came in with his broken windows policy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't have New York, but for D.C., I do have the homicide rates from 1980 to 2025.
Is it per capita?
Yeah, it's per capita. So the homicide rate in 79 was 27 people murdered per 100,000. Then it spiked a little bit to 35. Then in the 90s, actually, it skyrocketed up to the
90s was the worst for DC.
80 people out of 100,000 were murdered in DC per year. That's insane.
That was probably the tail end of the crack cocaine epidemic or whatever. How do they classify that? Yeah.
I don't know. I was, barely born in the 90s. So, but then it fell throughout the later 90s into the 2000s, all the way down to 2012 when it got to 13 people per 100,000. And now it's back up. It was back up in 2021 to 40 people per 100,000. That's 3 times what it was just 9 years before in 2020.
Wow. And you said in the 70s it was 27?
In 79 it was 27, and then it got all the way up to 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's still half of as bad as it was.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and
it's risen back up to
It's risen back up. Yeah. That is a good point, that if you let crime get out of control, it can get very out of control. So it's better to act when it's only 2 or 3 times higher than the low.
And this is one of the talking points that's frustrating right now, is this notion that the reason Trump is doing this is because he's a racist. And you're like,
oh gosh.
To me, it's like, are you listening to what you're saying when the majority population of Washington, D.C. is black? I think 48%, somewhere around there, 42%. They're the ones who are suffering most because of the high crime.
Sure. I saw a video of a woman driving with her window down downtown and commenting on, I got my window down and I'm not worried about carjacking.
Finally able to chill at a red light with my window down, not worried about if one of them young niggas is coming. riding through the city, feeling more safe than I ever felt.
These were her words. I feel safer right now than I have in my entire life. You want to tell that woman that is now experiencing the safest night of her life that what President Trump is doing is racist towards her?
Yeah.
And on that, I'm going to read this quote that came in from LA Mayor Karen Bass on this whole issue, which is, I'm concerned about the way President Trump is rolling anti-crime policies out in Washington, D.C., which is essentially going after young black and brown youth. No, he's going after criminals.
Yeah.
Can't you understand it? What the hell is wrong with you people?
If the criminals happen to meet those descriptions, then that's a separate thing. But he's not going after non-criminal black and brown youth because they're non-criminal.
Well, there is an element that's really concerning about the nature of crime over the last, half decade now. This kind of mob youth crime that we've seen kind of happening. It is. They're teenagers.
Yeah.
And they're engaging in harder and harder crimes. Like carjacking that's a violent crime.
Carjacking is an epidemic in D.C., and 51% of the perpetrators are juveniles.
Yeah.
And
it's very common in
And
DC,
I'm thinking of about, was it 2 or 3 years ago, where the Uber, I think it was an Uber Eats driver or something, in broad daylight had his car, two girls tried to jack his car, got in and drove in, and he got killed in that process.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think the girls were maybe like 15 or something.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that's what you're seeing. I saw a lot of TikTok videos over this weekend of black residents of D.C. talking about the crime crackdown and about how, what was causing it was these young, the term they use is YN, which I'll let you figure out what YN stands for.
She a YN, he a YN, them YN's crazy. What is a YN? Sit back and relax because I got y'all. So a YN stands for Young Ninja.
And they were saying these YNs don't know how to behave. They're always going too far, pushing too hard, and talking about, they were saying like 3 infants had been killed in the last short period of time in DC. Infants, like at a certain point, you just have to accept that the law is there for a reason, and it's actually good to enforce it.
My concern is, or why we're seeing maybe this, I don't know if explosion is the right term, but jump in this type of activity, specifically among black youth. That's just what we're seeing. It's how much of that has to do with the narrative since BLM, and even a little bit before that, where if you're training up people to think racially like this and just think, oh, the laws, the rules, and everything, it's all an expression of white supremacy, or this kind of like an element to keep you down, not let you be your true self, all this kind of narrative. What motive would someone have to then follow the law at that point?
Right. The way Marxism behaves, resisting the system, resisting law enforcement, resisting, in quotes, basically attacking.
Oppressor, oppressed.
Yeah. But that's the point. The desire is to get people attacking the law enforcement until there's so much chaos and breakdown of law and order that people will accept any system, including a horrible one that's literally never worked, like communism.
Yeah. Well, it also, a key tenet of that mechanism is to literally bring around revolution.
Yes.
And so as to then rebuild in this long train of cycle towards utopia.
Right.
That's the idea.
And for our system of government to work with the liberties we enjoy, we have a system based upon a trust in citizens to behave morally. And so
personal responsibility.
Right. So when
liberty.
That element breaks down, you don't ever end up with liberty. Liberty works when everybody agrees to this concept of this is moral behavior that you need to be engaged in.
Liberty does not mean you do whatever you want.
Right.
Correct.
That's licentiousness, which licentiousness just ends up in chaos and injustice like crazy.
Right. Getting more on the political side, this represents something Trump is really, really good at, which is defining the news cycle for a period of time. Is he'll pick an issue and then he'll go hard on it, and then that's all anyone's talking about. Yeah. And I think it's partially defensive. He knows what people are going to be talking about, so they're not going to surprise him with something else. But also, he's just finding, here's an issue where 80% of people wish crime were less than it is now. I can be the guy who makes that happen. And then I have 80% support on that issue. And so he picks these 80-20 issues, and the Democrats always, up till now, have picked the 20% side and said, if Trump's for it, we must be against it.
Yeah.
And who loves crime? I mean, the criminal.
Right.
And, it's funny, Joe Scarborough, you mentioned that earlier, Sterling. He's got people in that 20% camp who secretly are saying, oh, this is great.
Right. And
then publicly they'll go out and disavow it and say, oh, what Trump is doing is fascism. But, maybe it's even more than 80%.
Right. So Joe Scarborough, if you don't know, he's an MSNBC host. If you know anything about MSNBC, you should expect him to be a Trump hater. And he was, and still is, until he bent the knee after Trump won in 2024. But now what he's saying is basically, hey guys, we can't be anti-crime law enforcement. We can't do that on this one because it's actually that bad in DC. And he's reading quotes from these lefties, like you said, Andrew, on the air on Morning Joe saying, yeah, crime is really bad. Here's one quote from someone who texted him. Well, if he doesn't overreach, if Trump doesn't overreach, this could actually be a good thing for quality of life. Duh.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's just the big problem here is there's this narrative and this idea that Trump is always going to overreach in every single area. And I mean, to be fair, he pushes the envelope. It's true. That is kind of why he got elected, I think.
From a bigger perspective, why this is working and why this is an issue, when you would think law and order, both sides should embrace this kind of concept.
Yeah, sure.
I think that there has developed a narrative over the last 10, 15 years. We talk about George Soros DAs and stuff who are soft on crime. There's a narrative that the criminal system is racist.
Right.
And therefore, how to correct it is effectively to stop prosecuting a lot of these crimes. What has actually occurred, because you don't, is more crime.
Right. And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit trail, but that's an interesting point, Thomas. It is true that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people were a little bit more amenable to that argument.
Yeah.
That's the law enforcement system is racist. We need to try different things. We need to try, taking them to therapy. We need to try, actually restorative punishment, I guess, after the crime instead of just sending them to prison. And people were like, okay, let's give it a shot. Maybe that's true. They were kind of convinced. And then they've seen crime just get worse and worse and worse. And they're like, okay, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a cycle because this is exactly why the 1970s got so bad. And maybe you could say, according to that, even up to the 90s.
Right.
There's a sense in which I feel like at one point they got rid of the death penalty because, it's too final.
Right.
And then after the amount of crimes, murders and stuff started happening, and I think the 1970s was notorious for serial murders, there was a realization, no, we need to have some penalties here. We need to actually have law and enforce the law, and because this criminality is terrible.
I think we've covered DC pretty well. Real quick, what do y'all think for 26 and 28? So there's midterm elections in 2026, then the next presidential election in 2028. I think if Trump can really hang crime crackdown around his neck as the guy who makes crime get better, I think that's going to just blow the Democrats out of the water in the next couple of elections, if that's the thing voters go into the voting booth thinking about. Crime gets better under Republicans.
It's a long way off, honestly. A long way off. This is according to the law, he's got 1 month basically in DC to do this. Now they've talked about expanding that in different ways, and they probably will look for other things. It won't, but the National Guard will be off the streets at the end of the month is my prediction. I think it's going to take more than him acting in D.C. for that to become the narrative. He has shown
it'll take more than D.C.
He's shown that he's doing it with ICE, with illegal immigration. He's had a lot of success with that. So that's a big thing that's positive, although there's been some negative press around that because there's this press that he's now picking up people who are just, their only crime is being here illegally. That can sour that kind of attitude.
The press is always the kicker, I think.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, there continues to be a left media stranglehold on the public, it seems.
Yeah.
And that can really have a big impact. So the net material gain is really going to be if people are genuinely feeling it in their daily lives and seeing it, that's going to be the win, in spite of the narrative. That's the only way to beat the narrative is for you to hear this over here, but then look around and be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm not stepping over homeless people going into my job anymore, and that's nice.
Yes. Hopefully, I mean, wouldn't we all want to live in a country where there aren't people ODing on the streets?
Yes.
And there aren't carjackings and there aren't people, pillaging everything all the time and destroying our communities. The second that starts to happen, I think that could really make a difference in sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, and maybe there's a plan for this, ideally there would be a kind of a moment where a lot of these states, especially mayors from these big cities, would kind of like swallow some of their pride, come together and say, okay, we see what you've done in DC and you've really helped clean it up. Mm-hmm. Maybe there can be some type of cooperation to do the same in our cities because this is a real problem. Yep. If there's a willingness to do that, then I think this can really be something that really changes the country
in a positive
way. But right now there's a lot of resistance.
And, just maybe final point for me anyhow, economically, one of the biggest things that's going to make your life better is less crime.
Yeah.
It's just going to make your life better if there's less crime in terms of paying for things, in terms of not having to get the cashier to come unlock the deodorant from the shelf so you can buy deodorant.
Yes. You buy deodorant?
only once a year or so, but
Not like you could use a shower, Dickie.
One of the most primary reasons of government is so that free men can peaceably engage in commerce with one another, and that is essentially law and order.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good ending note, Andrew. All right, that's it for our episode on the DC crime crackdown. We are the Pop Culture Contrarian, Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew. Go to patriotpostshop.com and buy some of our merchandise, and go to patriotpost.us. Subscribe to our newsletter. It is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.